Hello, Iris J with Madrona's Pulse Teaching. Welcome back to my channel, and I am talking with you about Mercury Retrograde, which is basically August. So Mercury goes retrograde August 4th, and it stations direct August 28th. So we're looking at basically the month of August, and folks, it's wild. There is no other way to say it. This month is a bit wild, and I'm going to talk about all the different things that are going on, but what's wild about it is that Mercury retrograde is kind of the overseer of a lot of the energy that's happening in August. So going into August right away, that tells us that firstly, it's a month to try and slow down, which isn't always easy because that Leo sun doesn't usually like slowing down, and yet the thinking and the mind-body practices want to slow down a little bit to support what's going on, because there could be some major shifts going on. I say that we need to talk about Mercury retrograde a little bit, because instead of framing Mercury retrograde as this incredibly disruptive, pain in the butt, I don't know what else we want to call it, horrible experience, it's a retrograde. It's a time for us to come into a reflective place so that we can get out of our own way, our own mind's way, and potentially see a path or understand something that we wouldn't have understood if we had just kept going so straight. Okay, it's all retrogrades are a gift that bring us into the embodiment of non-linearity, because they show us that there's always other perspectives that we need to receive. And this is something that Mercury is doing when it goes retrograde, and it's working with our thoughts and our perceptions and our ways of understanding and thinking and our language. And so this Mercury retrograde is incredible. So it begins again at 4 degrees of Virgo on August 4th. And August 4th is also our Leo new moon, and I'll have another video about that. But interesting to note that this Leo new moon comes, and then that's very early in the morning, around 4:18 a.m. Pacific time, and then Mercury will station retrograde later in the evening on the 4th, exactly at 9:56 p.m. Pacific time. And it's going to station retrograde, going to go back through those first few degrees of Virgo, and then it's going to come into Leo on August 14th. And it's from pretty much when it comes into Leo that things start getting a bit wild. But one of the first things that I wanted to mention, because I think it's quite lovely, is that on that new moon, which is a Leo new moon, and so right there we see that there's something shifting in our perspective, coming into reconsidering our own thoughts, you know, starting in Virgo, our own mind-body connection, our own way of really manifesting devotional practices in our life, whatever that means to us, as we're coming into planting seeds around really claiming our creative heart space in a very authentic way. Because the Leo sun was opposite Pluto, which was really calling us in to break down those kind of false performing selves so that we can claim the genuine, beautiful, authentic Leo energy, which is just a heart creative joy and passion. And so that those seeds, we're really planting some of those seeds with the Leo new moon about our own creative joy. And then Mercury stations retrograde, and there's some things that need to be looked at. And they're going to involve Leo energy, because much of the retrograde is going back over that Leo, that last part of Leo from 29 to 21 degrees. So then when Mercury stations direct on the 28th of August, it'll be at 21 degrees of Leo. And on that same day when it stations retrograde, there's this really lovely conversation going on between Juno, who is traditionally the goddess of marriage, and she is where we give our word. She's how we hold our integral selves. She's divine feminine energy, divine feminine asteroid, and she's at the final degrees of Virgo. So still in Virgo, where our Mercury is stationing retrograde, and opposite Neptune at the 29th degree. And so this, you know, this kind of Juno talking to Neptune at the 29th degree in Virgo, is a really beautiful intention setting energy for both the new moon and Mercury retrograde. And that is all around our commitment to our spiritual path, the commitments in our daily life, in our mind-body connection. Juno is where we can create such an integral commitment with Juno, and it's opposite that Neptune retrograde, who's really wanting to rework our spirituality and our gifts of mystical experiences and going beyond the veil and the higher rungs of Neptunian energy there. And so it's a lovely practice to set an intention around kind of committing to yourself in ways that are healing, Virgo, for your own mind-body connections that are about your spiritual path as we come into this wild August. So why am I saying that it's wild? Okay. So a lot of this begins as Mercury comes back into Leo, which happens on the 14th. And then we're going to have this very dynamic energy, which is that, sorry, I'm looking at my notes because it's just a lot. So the biggest piece about this, and I had uploaded a video a couple weeks on it, is Mercury rules Gemini. And who's in Gemini? Jupiter. So whenever we have a Mercury retrograde, it's going to color how we're working with that Jupiter in Gemini, that expansive ideas, communication, understanding, communities, words, media. And there's a lot going on with Jupiter in the month of August. So Jupiter in Gemini is going to be conjunct Mars, first of all. Okay, so Mars is going to keep moving ahead in Gemini, and Mars in Gemini is a lot of ideas. It's a lot of drive. It's fast moving. It's fast moving media. It's fast moving media stories. Remember, even when we like what we're seeing in the media, remember that it's still narratives being constructed through institutions of power. Okay, always. That is what the media is, especially when it's mainstream media. It's industries of power weaving narratives. And Mars is conjunct Jupiter, which is an abundance of media, an abundance of narratives. Now, in our own lives, we're interacting with that media, so just being mindful of that. There is no other word than a Mercury retrograde that starts in Virgo, mindful reflection. And then mindful reflection that wants to cross over into our own thoughts in our own directions in life. Okay, so this Mercury retrograde in Leo, we should also say, before I go into the wildness, what do we need to reconsider about our own plans, our own, in this Leo season? Have you had a lot of ideas? Has there been passion? Where has your joy wanted to pour out? What did you want to run wild with? What did you have a lot of energy to pour into? And now Mercury retrograde in Leo says, okay, there's some other paths. There's some other things to consider about your desires. And Leo is absolutely about desire and creative joy. And so Jupiter conjuncts Mars there in Gemini, and that begins, around August 10th, 11th, and then it's exact on the 13th and 14th. So just as Mercury comes back into Leo, and it lasts through the 16th. And so just, maybe we also need to reconsider some of the abundance of ideas that we're having. Maybe we need to reconsider and slow down. Okay, the fact that there's all of this Gemini energy with Jupiter and Mars, while Mercury is retrograde, the ruler of Gemini, suggests that we need and want to slow down. We want to really consider plans before moving forward with them. And we want to consider the stories that we're consuming, the stories that we're receiving, the stories that we're writing. Even how we're using something like social media, how we're using our own language. There's something to be reconsidered and reflected upon here rather than just acting. And that's hard for Mars when it's conjunct Jupiter. And so we're going to see a lot of energy happening. not even the most of it, because then that Mars and Jupiter are going to square Saturn. And they're going to come into what we call a T-square, because Saturn is going to be opposite Venus. So Saturn is going to be retrograde in Pisces, and Venus is going to be opposite, okay? It's going to be in Virgo, and it's going to be around the 16, 17 degrees. And so then Jupiter and Mars are going to be squaring Saturn and squaring Venus. And so here we come into, I really feel that this Mercury retrograde is going to offer a lot of insight, a lot of valuable insight, and we're going to have a much clearer idea of where we're heading. Where are you heading? What have you been working on, especially in terms of your own voice, your own projects, your own journey, as it relates to your spirituality, your spiritual path? Saturn is moving through Pisces, and it is cleaning stuff up. It is potentially also bringing up some grief, some kind of pockets that we kind of tucked away in those Piscean realms, and they go deep. And Saturn's kind of like, no, this got to come up and it's got to clear, because we got whole new realities coming. And now that cleansing process squares Jupiter and Mars. And so we might need to look at what we need to clean up. We might need to look at some of the ways we've been trying to move ahead, and also check in with our values. Venus and Virgo. This is, values about our mind-body connection, values about our daily habits, the way that those daily habits contribute to our own mental and emotional wellness and sustainability. We talk about sustainability in terms of big projects for the earth and companies and institutions, and that's all part of it. But our daily life in Virgo and also in Taurus is about the sustainability in Virgo for our mind-body connection, so that we can be of service to ourselves, so that we can be of service to others, so that we can be of service to others in a way that creates structures, so that that Pisces energy can come through and do its unconditional love in this earthly plane. That's what Virgo energy is about. And Venus is there asking us, to check in with our values. How are we living and embodying our values every day in a way that heals us and heals others and helps us on our spiritual path? And how does that really want to be part of the way that we are expanding our consciousness? Jupiter and Mars in Gemini. How does it want to be part of how we are coming into new understandings of really these journeys that we're on? And this energy lasts all the way through to the 26th of August, right before Mercury stations direct again. And you know what? Venus is not even going to be alone around the 20th, the 19th and the 20th of August. True Black Moon Lilith is going to be conjunct Venus, opposite Saturn, square Jupiter and Mars. And so there's also something about reclaiming that's coming through here. It's a lot of energy. And again, that Jupiter and Mars in Gemini are ruled by our Mercury retrograde. So whatever's going on for us, and especially as that Mercury retrograde is in Leo, it's deeply personal. It's deeply personal about our own journeys, about our own self-worth, about our own sense of sovereignty that is authentically coming from Leo, creative divine energy streaming through us. So especially if we have been making plans that are really driven by conditioned mentalities around performing for external validation, which is what Leo can get taught to do, those do want to break down. Those want to be reconsidered. How have we maybe been running forward with something that we thought we had to do because that's what we've been taught is worth something. That's what we've been taught. And that usually has to do with climbing social ladders and showing up in society in certain ways. And really, Leo wants, well, what is going to make you happy? What is going to make you joyful? What is going to make you happy in a way that doesn't come from grand applause from others, when really that just creates a vicious cycle of performing and reshaping ourselves so that we can keep receiving applause? What is actually going to come from within that is so bright that it shines out of you, and others look at you and they think it's just gorgeous? Because that's Leo energy when it's aligned. That's Leo energy when it is acting as it wants to. And Mercury retrograde is saying that there's some things going on in those kind of ways that we've been formulating our understanding of ourselves. That's what Mercury is about, that maybe needed to be reconsidered. And then Mercury stations direct. And you know what happens as Mercury stations direct, which is why I started with that Juno and Virgo opposite Neptune, is that Venus is at the same exact place where Juno was at the very last day as Mercury is going to station direct. And so now Venus is at that 28th to the 29th degree of Virgo opposite Neptune. And there, check in. What was that commitment that you set for yourself at the beginning of Mercury retrograde around your own service to yourself, around having an integrity around your relationship with yourself and your mind-body connection in order to support your spiritual path? And now Venus comes and wants to pour in that divine feminine love into those values, so that Venus opposite Neptune wants to sing a soul song in the way that our spirituality wants to kind of flourish in our own values moving forward. And that's something that perhaps this Mercury retrograde can help us do. Just remembering that it's going to be a little bit wild. And as always with Mercury retrograde, slowing down, especially it's Leo. Leo is extremely creative energy. Our sun is still in Leo. Make art for the sake of making art, not because it has to look a certain way or anything like that. It's not to be validated. You don't even need to show it to anyone, but make it as a way of kind of getting the creative energies to flow. Make, if you thought you had to go this way and suddenly life is suggesting that you go this way, make art, make a map, and let color be what speaks to you. Try and get out of the head a little bit, because we want to get into the creative flow and the creative fires, because that's what Leo is all about. So I will see you when I see you. We're all going to buckle up and we're going to get into it. Be well.